Hey guys, Denne here, day something, 70 something. How are we doing? Hope you're okay. Today I'm going to be talking about all of my jobs that I've had, the amount of work I've put in, the sort of hours that I was doing, how I coped and where and how I got to where I am today. I probably get asked this on a weekly basis, mainly how do I find all the drive. So today I'm going to go into it all. So grab a cup of tea, grab a water, sit down. I've had over 20 jobs. I've started over 4 companies. It's quite long. So if you are in, I suggest you sit down and have a listen. If you're watching it back, then I hope you learn from this about why I'm so messed up in the head and why I run around like a headless chicken and what goes on in here. Okay. So my earliest memory of having a job, believe it or not, I was about 4 years old. And my parents used to do apple picking. And I don't remember much about the job. All I remember is really cold mornings and evenings at the farm, putting apples into boxes. And I remember my parents would be like, if I filled up a box, I got like 50p or 20p. I can't remember exactly, but I used to get a little bit of money for doing that. And again, I was aged 3 or 4 at the time. Because my parents used to work hard. They used to. My dad was a plumber. He fitted showers. My mum owned a gardening business. She's done cleaning. Like, she'd done as much work as she can over the years. And obviously, I didn't know it was a job. I was just like, well, I've got to go apple picking tonight. I was very young, and I remember picking all the apples up off the floor and cleaning them and putting them in the box and all that kind of stuff. Couldn't even lift a box up, but I remember putting them in, and then I used to get told off because I put the wrong apples in the wrong box and stuff like that. But that. Looking back at it, that's the earliest memory I have of a job, and I didn't know that was a job back then. But that's my earliest memory, and I didn't know at the time. But the Denne's are workers. You know, my dad worked hard, 18, 19-hour days. So did my mum. So did my brother. All the way through our life. So I've known no difference. So my education from my parents was to earn money, you have to work hard. I didn't even know it at the time, but that's what it was. And then, you know, when I wasn't at school or after school or at the weekends, they couldn't afford childcare. So when they would go and mow lawns, guess what? I'd be going mowing lawns with them. So as I was old enough to grab a pair of secateurs and cut the edges, or emptying the grass boxes. So, you know, mum would mow a bit, empty the grass box. I would put the grass in the bag and then take it to the van. By the time I got back, they'd filled another one up, and so on and so on. And I used to get, you know, a couple of quid for a Saturday helping, that kind of thing. But I didn't know at the time, it was just part of life. But obviously back then, that was part of a job. That's how I got my pocket money, by doing that. And again, I didn't really know it, but in 16 years with being with mum and dad, we had one holiday to Majorca, I think. Majorca. So, you know, and I remember having that. I was probably 8 or 9 at the time. But I was like so amazed. But when you look back at it, like now, like one holiday, that one holiday in 16 years, that was it. The only time I went on a plane with them was then. And sort of, if you think about that now, a lot of people will be like, wow, that's insane. If you think about how many times you go away now. So I think probably from day dot, I was taught to work hard, and that was it. I know no different. So that's probably why I work so hard. So understanding wanting money, but also understanding working really hard. I got a paper round when I was 10. Now, I don't know what it is now, but back then you had to be 13. But I applied for 6 or 7 paper round jobs at newsagents in Silver Hill, lied about my age. And they're like, oh, you look young. I'm like, yeah, I'm really small, but I want to work. And I eventually got a job delivering, obviously, newspapers. And then, like, if someone else didn't turn up, I would do my round, and then I would do their round as well. So to get to school in time, I ended up having to run or use my bike and ride fast to get my paper round down. So I quite often done 2 rounds, which meant I got paid for 2 rounds, or my round plus a little bit of their round. And then as I got reasonably good at it, because I worked hard, I would go in even earlier, and then I'd sort out the papers at the paper shop. So it'd be like head paper boy, which sounds really gay. But, you know, I was willing to get up half hour early, get to the shop at like 5:30 to set the papers into the paper rounds, and then go out on the rounds. And again, sometimes I remember, like, if it's absolutely lashing down, I remember my dad would get up with me and drive me round just to make sure we would get it done, not get too wet, so I could get to school on time. So thank you for that, Dad. So that was like from the age of 10 upwards. Everyone thought I was mad, but that's what I'd done. From about the age of 10 as well, I absolutely was into cars. So my older brother was 15, Paul. He obviously he was into mountain bikes at the time, and he had a really nice, I think it was a Diamondback, but I remember looking at it, bright red Diamondback mountain bike, and I loved it. He loved it. He loved that, and he was into bikes and obviously cars. So when he turned 17, he bought a car, and he was a proper petrol head, as I was and am. So I started loving bikes and loving cars, and I remember just thinking, like, one day I'm going to have whatever it was. It was an Audi Quattro at the time. Like, remember Max Power magazine putting all the posters on the wall, and about 50 of them all around my wall. As did my older brother. You know, he had an Audi Quattro, a Porsche 911, so from Bad Boys and stuff like that. We was into ice skating, and again, I remember my brother having like the best pair of Bauer Tour boots, so I wanted a pair of Bauer Tour boots myself. But my parents couldn't afford to buy them, so I had to work. So I'm like, Mum, can I work at the weekend? Can I come out at the weekend? Can I go lawn mowing? I need to do an extra round. I need to get up earlier. So at the age of 10, like 1990, in my head, I knew to get money, I had to work, because Mum and Dad didn't have money just to give to me. At the time, they were doing 17-hour, 18-hour days. I remember having like 4 or 6 students. I haven't even written this down, students. So we used to have to get up and do them breakfast, like, you know, make them toast and cereals and make the tables and all that kind of stuff. That was part of one of my chores. So we had students. They were working every hour God sends. The pair of them, they barely saw each other. Probably part of the reason they're not together now. Just grafting to pay the mortgage, because the mortgage was like, I don't know, when it was high, like 8%, 9%, 18%, whatever the mortgage rates were. Obviously, I didn't know that. I was 10 years old. I didn't know about the mortgage rates and stuff. I just knew that they worked fucking hard. So as I went into senior school, I had my paper round. We used to go ice skating at the weekend. So we used to Marshall. So we used to get paid a little bit, like a tenner a day. So we used to ice skate for free. And we used to get like a tenner a day for marshalling. So cleaning the ice. If someone fell over, we'd go and pick them up. And so on and so on. So I moved forward a little bit. 1993, I started working for a company called PSL. Which is was a young man then called Terry, and he used to go around all the nightclubs and pubs putting in lights, smoke machines. He had a DJ business, he had an electrical business, fixing speakers, sound systems, amplifiers, mixers and all that kind of stuff. So I worked with him for quite a few years, and I loved it. So I was like, back then I was 13 years old, I was going into JRs, I met Joe Reardon and the owner of Saturdays, or whatever it was called at the time, fixing these big sound systems. Started working for Bernie, which I didn't even remember, doing bits for Bernie, seduction weekends. We were building up big sound systems for raves. Forgot about working at a bar in Rye as well. So yeah, I was building sound systems, unloading Arctic lorries, working with Adam Joy, working at Ryan Apper, so Club Horizon in Rye, I think it was called. So I was doing the lights there. So I was getting paid, what was I getting paid? £50 a night, plus free drink. 17, 18 was pretty cool. To work in a nightclub. Also while doing all my other jobs as well. So these are just like bits on the side. When I was ice skating, I wanted a load of ice hockey gear, and I remember this because I had trials for Brighton Bears to play for the team, but I had no ice hockey gear. Parents couldn't afford ice hockey gear because it was very expensive. So again, I remember having to work my arse off just to buy some second-hand stuff, which I remember buying from a big house over in Little Common. Completely random, but there you go. But I had to work hard to get it because Mum and Dad just didn't have the money. All of their money went on the mortgage and the house and feeding us kids and putting clothes on our back. But that was literally it. We had a shitty brown Volvo's 740 GLA estate. Christ, I got ripped for that at school. All my mates had BMWs and Mercs and even Vauxhalls and Fords, and we had this rancid, horrible Volvo estate. So I hope this is making some kind of sense, guys, and you're enjoying it, because I'm only halfway. I worked in a nightclub, I worked in the pubs, fixing everything. At the weekends, I was mowing lawns with my dad. So Mum was doing less and Dad was doing more, so I ended up working. And again, I think I was getting about £20 a day then for a whole day, which back then was, for me, like loads of money. Just grafting. And then age 15, 16, we was all at school, and we used to as we do, I remember Rich wanted a Hilux truck and Justin wanted whatever he wanted and I wanted what I wanted. But for the 15, 16, we was like, I'm going to have that car, I'm going to have that car, and we're going to have these alloys and this sound system and this stereo. But for 2 years, we were focused on cars. So didn't really care about my education much. All I wanted was a car. I want a car, I want a car, I want a car. My petrol head, I want a big sound system and a car. So everything was driven to leaving school, earning money and getting a car. So I left school with not much education. I went straight into work, working at Philips, building kettles. So we used to build 600 kettles a day. Again, up at like, I don't know, 6 o'clock in the morning, 5:45 in the morning, started work at 6:30. You know, I remember my first week of work, I literally crashed. Like, I literally slept for the whole weekend. It was probably the best weekend sleep I've ever had. Kelly got me that job, my sister-in-law, my brother's wife today. Thank you, Kelly. I worked there for about 3 or 4 months. Turns out I wasn't that good at building kettles. So I was offered to leave. I'd be sacked. Very long story short, but I was asked to go and dismantle a load of kettles over the back. And then I was with a mate of mine, Rob, and he said it would be good if we crushed them for them. So we put them in the crusher and crushed them. And after 2 days of crushing kettles, the manager came out and said, where's all the kettles? And he's like, we've crushed them. And he's like, well, we asked you to stack them, not crush them. So they asked me to leave. So that is the end of my job at Philips. So I then wanted, I actually wanted some education. I wanted to learn. So I then become a electrician's mate. So at the Conquest hospital. So that was my next job. And I've done that for Conquest. I haven't even written that down. So yeah, I was an electrician or electrician's mate for about 6 months. And all the electricians then, they were earning like £100 a day. And I was definitely not £100 a day. But I remember thinking, this is a really cool job. It's good fun. It's a laugh. It's on site. It's brilliant. I want that. So I thought, right, I need to re-educate. So I got a job with AB Electrical. I went to college and I started to train to be an electrician. So I'd done 1.5 years at college. 18 months, which I can put that down. Got into my towards the end of the second year of the college work, and I struggled like mad. Like the numbers, the education, the English, the science behind it all, I really, really struggled. And I was only on, what was I on? £43 a week? £42.50 a week? Something like that. AB Electrical, you slave driving people. Hey, Andre. But that was back then. So although I was learning a skill and I was going to college, I was earning no money at all, or very little money. And I really, really struggled with college. So I dropped out of college. As I dropped out of college, I was offered a security job at Safe and Sound. Safe and Sound. Fitting alarms. So I fitted alarms for a good year and a half with Dave Stokes. Hey Dave, hope you're doing well. He's now massive, high up in ADT, he's some regional manager, and he's smashing it, and ironically has Porsche 911, so well done. So stopped become a electrician, started fitting alarms where I started getting paid, so I was getting £193, I think, a week. And Dave was getting more because he was like the head guy. But that was like my first job, like where I was getting actually paid and I could afford to buy a car and do a car up and live and all that kind of stuff. But Lee, the boss, we didn't see eye to eye most of the time because I'll say what I think, whereas other people would just bite their tongue. And I'd be like, oh, actually, I'm not happy with that, and actually taking the piss. So I used to butt heads with a few people because I would say what I think, which sometimes probably isn't the best thing to do. So we started to fall out, and he made my life at that job quite difficult. So moving on a little bit, I wanted a job at BT, so I used to do electrics and I used to do alarms and put cables together. And a good friend of mine, Steve Fisher's stepdad actually, he said about going for a job at BT. So I applied for a job at BT 3 times and heard nothing. So I was mowing lawns in between. And then I heard that they were interviewing up in Crawley. So very long story short, I just went up there with my CV and said, look, can I have an interview? And they said, yeah, what's your name? We'll look through the list. And I was like, you won't find me on the list. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm not on the list. And they're like, well, why have you come for an interview? And I was like, well, actually, a friend of mine is really good friends with this person. And he said, if I come up, I might be able to. And as I said that, a guy on the panel turned and said, oh, yeah, I know Steve. Yeah, no problem. He said, I'll do it at lunchtime if you don't mind waiting 3 hours, then I get bored at lunch. I'll talk to you then. So I was like, okay, cool. So I waited 3 or 4 hours. I went back at lunchtime. We sat down. I gave him my CV. And my CV was literally 2 pages of school, which was rubbish, and then 30 pages of kickboxing and coaching and all my other little bits that I've just explained. So he sat down, he flicked through my thing, and he turned around and went, before I start, you got the job. And I'm like, what? Okay, cool. Why? And he said, well, you're going to kick my head in if you don't. I was like, I'm not a violent person. He said, oh, my daughter does karate. So basically, we talked about karate for 40 minutes and kickboxing for 40 minutes. We talked about BT for about 2 minutes, and then I got the job. So I was a bit cheeky. I took a risk. I drove to Crawley, sat there for 4 or 5 hours, took a chance, a bit cheeky, and got the job. And then obviously went through all the training and stuff. And that was in 1998, and that's where I settled for 17 years, I think. I can work that out in a minute. But while I was doing all that, I still didn't have, at that time in my head, enough money. So I was still working for PSL at weekends. I was still doing the odd bit at the ice rink. I then started, I went paintballing a few times with some friends, and I really got on with the guy that owned it. So I ended up doing some paintballing, marshalling for a year and a half. So I was getting 50 quid a day. I got free paintballing whenever I wanted, and I got 50 quid a day to go paintballing. So I started doing that Saturday and Sunday. That was 97, 98. I would say. That's when we bought our first house as well. So at the time, Jenny was renting a flat. So she was paying £600 a month for a flat. And I said, well, why don't we get a mortgage? Because a mortgage is only going to be £600-700. You're paying that for rent. Why don't we just get a mortgage? Everyone thought I was insane at the time because they were spending more money on cars, getting fast cars, better cars, newer cars, going out drinking, doing what 18, 19-year-olds do. Excuse me. So me and Jenny bought a house. So that was the start of kind of getting on the property ladder. And then very, very quickly, they followed suit afterwards. So I started working for BT. I was still doing alarms. I still done a little bit for Terry at PSL as and when he needed it, if he needed extra hands, like unloading lorries. I still done a little bit at Rye as well. So BT, 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. Safe and... paintballing at the weekends, plus working at Rye Saturday night or Friday night, or sometimes both. So you can see like there was a lot of hours going in there. While I was at BT, after a while, I realised that I was working really hard, and most people at BT at the time then wasn't working really hard. So I got really told off for being really motivational. So I'd get there and go, right, come on guys. And they'd be like, no, cup of tea. I'm like, okay, cool, let's have a cup of tea. Right, let's go. Well, we've got to have a second cup of tea. Do you know what I mean? And this is going back many, many years. It's not quite the same now with trackers and apps on your phone that, they're driven. But back then, it was quite relaxed. So I got really, really bored. So while I was sitting there getting bored, this is when eBay started to grow quite well. So I started a few eBay businesses. I won't bore you about it too much, but I used to buy, for example, snowboards and jet skis and boats and chairs. So really long story short, you buy a snowboard in the summer for like, I think the most I paid for a snowboard was about £12 because who wants to buy a snowboard in the summer? So all I'd done is searched snowboards, and when people had it bidding, I'd just bid up to a maximum of like £10, £12. Some you'd win, some you'd lose. But I brought over 50, 60 snowboards for less than a tenner throughout about 2 years. And then you'd keep them, service them, and then in the winter, when everyone goes snowboarding, or at Christmas when people want Christmas presents, you would sell them. So I'd buy a snowboard for a £5, £7, £10, and then some I sold for like 180 quid in the winter because it was winter. That's what people wanted. So obviously you'd clean it up, make it nice and tidy, store it in the garage, and then sell it. So you'd turn a £5. Sometimes you'd make only 30 quid, 40 quid, but sometimes you'd make 150 quid from a £5. So that worked really well for a couple of years until more people jumped on it. And then I used to buy and sell boats and jet skis. So I'd buy a boat for like 300 quid in the winter. So again, who wants a speedboat in the winter? Admittedly, it's a bit of a pain in the ass to move. I'd then spend a few months doing it up. And again, Jenny would probably remember this at our house. I'd done a few speedboats up. So buy it in the winter, do it up for 3 or 4 months, sell it in the summer. So everyone, like convertibles, buy them in the winter, sell them in the summer. Just means you've got to keep them for a little while. So everyone would be like, oh, so what have you got a speedboat or you got a jet ski? At one time I had 3 jet skis. Now they were cool to own and they were really good fun and we had some really good summers with them. But buy them in the winter, so I'd buy a jet ski for like £1,000 again, clean it up if it needed a service and bits and pieces, tidy it up a little bit, get the paperwork sorted, give it a service, keep it for a year and then sell it in the summer. So you could double your money. And I still do that now today with cars. So we've actually still got a Renault 5 GT Turbo that we've had a year now. It's just sitting in the garage, but eventually when we find some time and get around to it, we can start working on it and hopefully build it. And only owes us about £1,000 because we brought two and then sold all the bits and pieces. So we've still got Renault 5. We've still got 2 engines to build and sell. But if you look at a mint Renault 5 is a lot. So eventually when we finish that, and we've got to spend some money and time on it, but we'll get there. So that was kind of BT and eBay, buying and selling. I ironically found a warehouse that sold chairs because I wanted a chair for our front room. I ended up buying a Lazy Boy for 99p from eBay. Buy it now, or starting bid 99p. I was the only one that bid. Had to go and collect it from Guildford, stick it in the BT lorry, take it home. That was when I could get away with doing that. And I thought this was pretty cool. So I ended up buying, there's a picture on eBay somewhere where I've got about 10 sofas in my front room. I was buying sofas for like 99p, £2, £3. The most I sold one of Lazy Boys for was like 200 quid. So 2 quid into 200 quid. Bit of a pain in the arse, yes. Did you have to work hard for it? Go and get it, pick it up, take it home. But didn't mind doing it. I'm not actually reading the comments if there is any. Favourite hot hatch of all time. Lee, I'll show you some pictures of it. Like in the state it's in, and then when we get round to it, we can hopefully take it out for a rag. Because we're putting a Volvo 1700 turbo lump in it. So that'd be really good and really light. So at this time in my life as well, I was still kickboxing as well. So I started kickboxing in 1991. So in between all of that, I was still training. And when I was 16, so 1996, 1996, I started doing a few classes and training here and there. And again, guys, if you just come on, I'm just saying about my life and my jobs and the amount of work I've had and why I'm wired the way I am. So whilst kickboxing, I started to coach and do bits and pieces. It wasn't a job. It's just my instructor wasn't there and he said, can you take the class tonight? No different to if I go away on a course and I say, Callum, can you take the class? Because I can't make it. I mean, Jenny does it, but that was the kind of where we was at. In 2009, I was asked to change the gym name. So we were Hastings Martial Arts, HMA. We were asked to turn it over to something different because it was growing and getting busier and busier. And the name was my old instructor's name, Bobby. And I was asked to change it to whatever. So I really didn't like the idea at the time because everything was HMA. My whole life was HMA. All the clothes were HMA. Long story short, we changed it to HKA. That's another podcast altogether. In 2014, I smashed my knee. I snapped my ACL. So I had 6 months off of BT full pay. So whilst I was off, my brain fires up again. Rather than sitting there being lazy and doing nothing, I landed a job with JRM, which is a company over in Rye called Sumo Power. And they had JRM Motorsport. So we used to work on the Skylines, so the GTRs and the GTR race series. So I got involved with them quite a bit. So while I was off sick at BT, I was doing a little bit for JRM. So I used to go over there and like jet wash the floors, clean the lorries up, just do bits and pieces, get my foot in the door. One of my first jobs was unloading a Arctic lorry, a double decker of the new Evo 8s. So my first job was loading an FQ 330 off the top deck of a lorry, competition class. Scared the hell out of me, you can't see where he's reversing it. So yeah, I've got some cool jobs, get to go and look at all the GTRs, got to go to some of their race meetings. I was offered a bigger job, but bearing in mind I was still at BT then, couldn't really risk it. So I wasn't the employee they wanted, but that was a cool job for about 6 months, getting to work with all of them. There's a couple of pictures with Beth and Leah with the JRM GT motorsport cars and all that kind of stuff. So that was really, really cool, seeing all that behind the scenes. But again, I was looking at other businesses and how they work. And then I've got here, I was still at BT, still at JRM, still doing a bit of paintballing, and I'm still here now today, February 2014, laugh out loud. So this is when some of these notes were written. 2015, I was still off BT because I went back to work for BT, but my knee wasn't quite right, and they said, Cole, you need to come back to work. So I went back to work, and I ended up falling off a curb and twisting my knee. So I had to go back off again, had another operation on my knee, but guess what? That meant another 6 months full pay. which was cool. So while I was off, a friend of mine, Lee, come around for a cup of tea, and he said, I've got to leave, I've got a meeting to go to. So where are you going? So I'm going to look at a business up the road where 1066 Airsoft is it? I think so. The shooting place on Salisbury North. So I went there for a meeting, and we ended up buying that off of the guy. Long story short, Lee needed a business partner, so I turned around and said, yeah, I'll buy in with you. It was only a couple of grand. I had nothing to do. It seemed like fun at the time. So we brought it as a business, and we changed the name, and we made or developed what become Apocalypse Live. So we were doing Nerf Wars there, and we also designed a sketch. So all the stuff we brought, there was loads of horror stuff, and they've done a horror maze there. They had a clown maze there. So over 6 months, we made a horror maze, and I made a company called Apocalypse Live. So we bought the website and the domain and all the clothes and all that kind of stuff. Spent quite a bit of money, a lot of time. At that time, Lee then went for a divorce, basically disappeared and went nowhere, and kind of left it on my shoulders. So I was working at BT, doing a few other bits and pieces, doing my eBay business, and doing Apocalypse Live, and training. So I was getting up at 4:30, 5, doing a few emails, bits and pieces for HK, going to BT at 7, working till 4-ish. I was meant to finish at 5. I was sort of sliding away at 4. That's why I left BT in the end, because I got caught too many times. Going to HKA for an hour, then going to Apocalypse Live, setting that up for a few hours. That's when I'd have people helping me do that. Then I'd go back to training, so I'd teach from 5:30, 6 through till 8:30, 9. I'd then go back to Apocalypse Live till about 11, 11:30, finish off bits there. I'd then go home, I'd then do another hour of emails and Facebook and bits and pieces. Then I'd go to bed about 1:30, absolutely wired, and then get back up at 4:30, 5 o'clock. And I'd done that for probably about a year. So they're the sort of hours I was doing. And that's when people start saying to me, Cole, you're burning out. If you don't sort something out, you're going to die. I haven't died, I'm still here. Good. But that's when I'd become insanely busy. On Apocalypse Live, if you YouTube Apocalypse Live, there's a video on YouTube. Like, we created this unbelievable. I knew nothing about horror and scare attractions. It just seemed like a cool idea. And when I have a cool idea, I want to do it. And do you know what I mean? I want to reach for the stars. So some people say to me, Carl, why didn't you do that? And then a week later I go and do it. Like a climbing wall at the gym. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. I get an idea, I want it. It's just how I'm built. So Apocalypse Live was wicked. YouTube it. I might put the link on this actually. I'll do that, yeah. If you want to look now, you can. But we turned this little warehouse into this hour-long... Honestly, it was wicked. So we done it for over Halloween. We absolutely smashed it. We had like 100, 150 people at night over the week, like for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. But you had 20 members of staff, makeup artists. It was horrendously stressful. It didn't actually make any money at all. It broke even, but that was about it. When you look at the hours we was putting in, I had like 15 people working for free. And it wasn't like they was working for me. They were working for me, but I didn't ask them to work for me. They just wanted to get involved because it was a really cool thing to do. So we built it over a couple of months. We ran it for like a week, and then it was destroying me mentally and physically. So it had to give. So I had a meeting with Lee, and then long story short, we sold it on to the next people, while still doing everything that I was doing anyway. I then created Nerf Combat with Lee because we were still at the gym, we were still doing HKA, and we had a nice big area, so we then created Nerf Combat, which we still got today, by the way. I just don't do nothing with it, really. I then left BT at November 2015 and started doing kickboxing full-time for HKA, November 2015. There you go. I then created a few other businesses that didn't work, set them up, just brain ideas that I get. The fitness specialist was one of them, so fitness specialist for schools. But what we found is every time we went to a school with the fitness specialist, they actually wanted HKA because it was a bigger, better company. Over 10 years as well, there was many ideas. So I was talking to Nick in America. We was looking at import, export and stuff. So we were in talks with Ford to import and export Ford Mustangs. That was a good few years ago. I used to go to the Isle of Wight probably once every 2 months, and I'd chat to Rich Mallet, who now lives in Hastings, and Kathy, and we used to go through business ideas, and we could do this and do this and do this. So it was always talking about the next thing in business. But I still didn't have much education in business. Last year we started HKA USA, and Nick is absolutely driving that through the roof at the moment, which is amazing. We've got pro fighters from all over the USA, and we're starting to go to slightly different countries now as well. So we only started that last year. I think we've got 10, 15 fighters on the books. Again, like without Nick, it wouldn't be what it is. So huge shout out to Nick in America, HK USA. But me and Nick have talked about building a business for over 20 years as well, because we used to kickbox together when we was 13, 14 and 15. And then present day, I've now just set up a company this week called HKA Custom Designs, which I won't tell you about, but over the next year we're going to grow that as well. It might work. If it does, amazing. If it doesn't work, it doesn't really matter. At least we tried. I'd rather try and fail than not try at all and kick myself for not trying. So good morning everyone that's kind of said hello or has watched. Jenny's now watching. Good morning, Jen. And it's only been last year I started to actually educate myself. So my whole life, from the age of 4, apple picking, I have been taught to work hard. Just work hard. Work hard, earn money. That's it. And it's only been the last kind of 18 months, really, that I've started to learn. Work hard, yes, you have to work hard. But also work smart, which is something I'm learning. And I haven't mastered it at all. But I'm 40 this year, and I'm only just starting to learn that. And the education I had was my mum and dad telling me to work hard. If you work hard, you earn money, and then you can pay a mortgage. But for me, that's not good enough. It's good enough, but I want more. I want more for me. I want more for my wife. I want more for my kids. I want more for Jenny. I want more for my members. So to do that, I have to be educated, and to do that, I have to grow. If I grow, everything else grows. The better we do, the better the gym does. The better the gym does, the more people we can employ. Do you know what I mean? And so on and so on. Wow, I've been going on for 32 minutes. Woo. If you've been watching the whole time, thank you so much. I do appreciate it. Again, if you just come on, hello. I've just spent half an hour explaining my work career from the age of 4. And I'm starting to change now. I'm starting to learn. I'm starting to educate, and I'm starting to understand. I'll always work hard. I'll be 70, 80, 90 years old, and I'll still be in the gym grafting, because that's what I love to do. If I won the lottery, I'd still be in the gym and I'd still be grafting. Difference is, I'm going to work slightly smarter. I'm not going to be able to pad the likes of Callum when I'm 70. Obviously, he won't be 15. He will then be 60, whatever his age is, 50. But you see my point. As years go by, I am going to slow down, and they're going to get stronger and stronger. So for this to continue and grow, then obviously I need to work a little bit smarter, which is where the education comes in. So I have no real end to this, really, apart from I probably get asked 2 or 3 times a week, every single week, why I'm wired the way I am. How do I work so hard? How do I cope? How do I get up at 6 a.m? Why don't I sleep? Because that's why I'm wired. I was educated from the age of 4 that you have to get up and go to work. Obviously, I'm trying to change that. I still need to get up and go to work, which I would always do. Always do. But, there are ways and means of making it better, working smarter. But I love working hard. And I think nowadays, a lot of children get a lot of things given to them. And don't get me wrong, I love being able to give our daughters things, but they are still taught ethics and work ethics. And they don't just get given pocket money, they have to do jobs and chores for it. And there are many people to do this, and there are many people that don't, and that's completely your choice. But that's what I was taught, and that's how I learnt. And that's why I am the way I am today. And I think as things go on, parents want to give their children as much as they can, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you just give. So, for example, when I was 13, I wanted ice hockey equipment. So I had to work for a month to go and buy an ice hockey helmet, which was 50 quid. I'd love to go, just have it. But it taught me that lesson. And how many of us now turn around and go, oh, you've just broke your iPhone. Oh, have another one. Oh, you've broke your iPad. Oh, we'll buy you another one next weekend. Don't worry about it. Oh, you're getting annoyed. Oh, you've been naughty. Okay, have a Xbox game. That kind of thing. And I'm not saying there's anything right or wrong with that, but that is why I am the way I am, because that's how I was taught. Simple as that. So, hey Ross, and hey everyone else that's been watching. So there you go. 35 minutes of my life and starting work at the age of 4, and why I am the way I am. And I hope that might help some of you. It's probably long, and I'd imagine a lot of you probably haven't watched all of it. But if you have, Fantastic, amazing. Have a great day, and I will see you all soon back at the gym.